Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast. This show is brought to you by Flatirons Tuning, your source for any aftermarket or OEM Subaru parts. Be sure to check out our store at flatironstuning.com and stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.
That's it.
Do you want to just jump in? Should we do the intro?
No.
No? All right. Welcome back, everybody. This is Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast, episode number 85. Can you guys believe that? We're actually zeroing in on 100 episodes, which this is kind of crazy.
Are we going to have a pizza party at 100 episodes?
Yeah. That's the plan. Yeah.
With the fans.
Nice.
With the fans, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Dussex is joining us. Tasso is here. Scotty is not in his usual environment. It is a race car, but oddly enough, that is Tasso's race car. So there's some weird cross pagination thing happening there, but there it is.
Pagination?
Cross-pollination?
Cross-pollination? Pollination. Sorry. Yeah, pagination, that's pages. That's.
Oh, I thought we were talking about child pageantry.
Oh,
Yep, there you go. Cephalopod power.
nice.
Yeah, this isn't going to make any sense if you're not looking at the video. So
Yeah, that's
That's
all right.
go to YouTube if you're listening to this.
So I've got a question that I want to throw out to start this thing off, because this is something that it's been something on my mind. We've kind of talked about it maybe a little bit in the background. And as oddly enough, as we were recording this, we just recorded another podcast last night with Tim Hardy. Scotty and I did. And really good conversation. If you're listening to this, but you haven't listened to that one, definitely check that one out. But man, do you want to talk about a grassroots racing effort that has developed and paid off? It was just a really interesting conversation to hear, like the process, all of what he's done. But here's the question that I have. Should motorsports be accessible, or should it be more accessible than what it is currently?
I mean, what's the definition of making it more accessible? Because I feel like the price point is what makes it harder for people to do it.
Exactly.
And
Should it be cheaper? Yes.
Should there be more cheap options to get into motorsports than what there is currently?
Called
I
karting.
feel like solo and rallycross at $50 events already pretty low barrier of entry. It's getting
Right. To just go out there and participate, but it's, to be in there and to be competitive.
Mhm.
And so there's lots of different places where this has come up in the past. But, like you look at Scotty's effort to try and build a car and compete in the class that he's competing in. Really, all three of you guys, Dussex, Tasso, all of your efforts to try and get a car that is not just something that's there that you can participate with, but you actually can be competitive with. And what brought it back to the forefront of mind with talking to Tim Hardy is the rules change that Pikes Peak came through with a couple of years ago, where you had two time attack classes, time attack 1 and time attack 2. The whole time he had built his car, it was for a time attack 1 class car. But then they did this rule change a couple of years ago, which basically said if you have a car that was naturally aspirated, you can't add forced induction and stay in time attack 1. If you make that change, now all of a sudden you're an open class. And like the open class cars, by and large, up to that point, were like tube chassis, purpose-built race cars, these crazy like 1,000 horsepower V8 Coyotes and all this sort of stuff. That's what's in open class. And all of a sudden, because he's bolted a turbo onto his BMW, that automatically now puts him in that class and changes the rule set for the car.
Like
So now,
6 years later, they changed that and pushed
Right.
him out of his class. I mean,
Right.
and things change. I mean,
that it happens.
We try and tell everybody before you go throwing a bunch of any modifications on your car, you need to build your car to the class. And if you're just getting into this, you need to start at the lowest possible class out there and go get your butt whooped a couple times till you improve your skills, and then you can start adding up and building to the next class. They just basically screwed him at that point. 6 years later, they changed classes on him, and
and others too. Like he wasn't alone. There was a good chunk of people that got bumped from time attack into open class when they made that rule change. Yeah.
I mean, that's to me the toughest thing I deal with that is that it's like a once a year race, and I don't know how competitive Harding is in there, but like ultimately the guys who are winning open and winning time attack 1 are dudes who are like willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a car.
So Hardy took third in open class this year. He's one of only 27 people that has ever been in the 9 minutes. He did a 9:59 a few years ago.
2018.
So he's at the pointy end of it. You know,
he was at the real pointy end of time attack 1.
Right.
Yeah. So
now, I mean, he's basically out budgeted by $1 million.
Yeah. I mean, as a organizer of own events and stuff, and trying to play friendly with rules, but sometimes you're trying to pull in the competition that you want to see on the mountain or in your events. Like, so for me, for example, in SCCA time trials, I was considering allowing like basic, simple, cheap coilovers in sport because we had so many people competing in tuner and so many people competing in max. I look at the roster, okay, what can I do to try and inspire competition in sport? And this is what I can do. And so it's possible. I'm not saying that that's what they did, but like as an event organizer too, sometimes you make rule changes to try and grow like maybe lacking classes, you know, so.
Okay.
So maybe in one regard, maybe time attack 1 was just getting so full of cars, like shit, we're gonna have to turn away cars.
And it was.
Yeah, and so you got to make a rule change where you look at open, and maybe open was like becoming a dwindling class.
And it was.
And you push cars into it. I see that from an organizer standpoint. I understand that. I mean, it sucks for some of the competitors, but for some of the other competitors who are coming into it, like who are in time attack 1. That are on the bottom end, maybe for them it's good, and it keeps like, and I mean, otherwise it's just like you either turn away cars and say, okay, there's a 30 car limit the time attack 1, and then you've got 8 cars or 5 cars in open, and you're like, well, how do I fix this? Well, what if we made this one change that took already some of the top competitors in that class and pushed them up, or you take some of the bottom competitors, like that's what I'm doing with sport, and push them down. Exactly. So I mean, I see that from a competitor standpoint.
It's funny that you make that point, because there was a couple years, I want to say there's maybe 2 years where we would have finished in the top 5 in open class because there was like 4 cars that finished or something like that. I mean, so it was definitely a limited class. So yeah, that could certainly be part of it. But then, like, so what Tim's struggling with is a lot of those cars, because in now the class that he has to run that car in for this event, they're purpose-built tube chassis cars that, you know, they have other advantages. They're lighter, all these sorts of things. It's like he's trying to figure out, can he still get to the point where he could be like really competitive in the top? But, you know, again, like Scotty said, he finished 3rd this year with everything, and so, I mean, he's got a car that's reasonably competitive. To me, the biggest thing is like we're talking about time attack 1, guys that are willing to spend $100,000 on a car, $150,000 on a car. And then that becomes like, you get enough people, if you get 2 or 3 people that have that kind of budget to build that kind of car in the class that you're, for whatever reason, you decide to want to compete in, that for a lot of us makes it unattainable, or seemingly would make it unattainable. And is that a problem?
Pikes Peak is unattainable anyways, just for entry fees and the selection process and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking, like, on what capacity should we try and make motorsports more attainable? I mean, you have Colorado is already like one of the cheapest track rental states and one of the cheapest places to get into motorsports. And if you were to compare it to how competitive the Southeast is, like imagine trying to go to the Roval of Pikes Peak International Raceway versus the Roval of Daytona. Like it's a huge difference in cost of that track rental and those events. And I'm not saying that PPIR is even on the same point of Daytona, but I mean, the fact is like it's already cheap enough. It's not cheap enough. It's already cheap as it is. And like just looking at like what we made, or I should say lost at this High Plains event, I mean, there gets to be a point of diminishing return too. Like how cheap can you sell an event? What are the expectations of competitors? You know, like we spent $2,800 on trophies for the majors competitors. And for a lot of the classes, there's one person in it.
Oh, wow.
You know, and so you start to think, shit, did we spend more money on trophies for that one guy to take home 4 trophies than that guy even paid an entry fees? So
Wow.
it's a weird. So, I mean, if you talk about it like that from the organizer standpoint, it's tough. You talk about it. I mean, car parts are getting more expensive. I just paid, like we were talking about it the other day, I just paid $875 for a drum of fuel that cost me $583 last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everything is going up. I think that if people don't consider stuff like solo and rallycross as like competition motorsports, then I think they're going to have a hard time like jumping into the Pikes Peak hill climb arena. And it's like, man, why can't it be cheaper? I'm like, well, I mean, do you really got to start at the top?
Yeah, it's not
True.
an entry level event. Like it's
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm tired of talking about, how to make motorsports more attainable or more entry level friendly and stuff like, because it is ridiculously entry level friendly. It's at this point, it's on you if you feel like you can't do motorsports. Like just open your eyes a little bit, go out there and take some responsibility for your own future. But Pikes Peak is not that. It's not an entry level motorsport.
Well,
and I think there's even too many.
And I'm not saying from Pikes Peak that that was the example that got it back into my head, but that it's just in general. And
sure,
yeah.
But I mean, but to that point though, like Pikes Peak, I think has too many classes to make it more friendly for the slow cars. I don't think it should have those classes. It should be, I mean, maybe not all one class, because that might be a little bit ridiculous. Maybe, but I even think that wouldn't be too bad. But maybe you have like a has a VIN, doesn't have a VIN class, and that's it. Or could drive to get ice cream and then couldn't drive to get ice cream class, and those are the two Pikes Peak classes. Or could do a second run without re-support, or totally couldn't. And that's where the class. But that's it. Maybe
yeah. Well, and the irony, to your point with Pikes Peak, is there are a lot of classes, there are a lot of cars that are running, but by and large, what people remember most years is just who won the race, who was the overall number one fastest car.
Exactly. And so I think, and this is a little bit, I don't know what the phrase is here, tongue in cheek or with acknowledgement of my own cynicism on this point. So, don't immediately just, whatever, write off Tasso's opinion on this one. But, I think a lot of times lower classes are just made for by people with slower cars that want to feel good about not wanting to build the fast car. And for a one-off top tier exhibition event like Pikes Peak, where you're not racing for a championship point or something like that, like either you were the fastest one up the hill or you weren't that day, and anything else I don't think matters. Like I even hesitate to talk about a lot of the class wins I get at CHCA events, because oftentimes I'm third overall and stuff like that, and that's what gets me and keeps me going.
Your focus is the overall, not the class.
Yeah, I haven't taken an overall win yet at the CHCA because it's a big steep field, and it's easy to explain it away with they have 4 times the horsepower I do, or weigh half as much, or have wings that are as large as my car is, and stuff like that. But those are factors, but they're not excuses. Like I don't sit on those and be like, well, yeah, but I totally could if I was in that car. Like, no, I didn't though, right? I could build that car. There's nothing to stop me from doing that. So it's on me. So
well, and those lower class, so the lower classes are in I would say you can make a strong argument that the lower classes are the attempt to make the competition more attainable to people that don't have, like it's almost, you can break it down by budget. Like what is your budget? Which, how fast of a car can you build? Which class can you build a car to fall into? We're gonna try and give you a class so that you can get out there and run with like another 5 people, kind of like what Dussex said, so you can actually see in a comparable rule set based on budget how competitive you can be with that class. But then again, you're in this class, and like the guys that are winning the race are 3-4 classes above you
Sure.
in much faster cars.
It's just thing. It's always been in my head in the various forms of racing I've done over the years, mountain biking, cars, whatever, sailboats, that unless I'm fastest on the weekend, yeah, sure, it's nice to have, I get a little dopamine dump from a class win or something like that, but it's the overall placing that I really care about.
Well, and see, the what makes me wonder about it is, so my answer is actually no. Motorsports should not be more attainable, but not for the reason that you probably think. But from an organizational standpoint, like what you're saying, Dussex, is like, how much of an issue is this barrier of entry to getting people interested in to come out and to participate? And then, like, if you can't get more people to participate over the long term, all of a sudden, then that can really kind of cause the sport to struggle.
Mm-hmm. I think it's, before we dive into it too deep, I think if in order for organizers to make it more attainable from a financial standpoint, people need to lower their expectations of what to experience. And if you lower your expectations so much, and then you find that fits you in another spot, then like, oh, cool, I'll just race with them. So I'll just use like the NASA time trials versus SCCA time trials as comparison. NASA time trials cost more than SCCA time trials does. NASA people who go and compete in NASA time trials expect tire contingencies, expect safety equipment contingencies, they expect medal trophies, they expect gourmet dinner food and stuff, and all those things. If you're thinking, okay, well, like at $450 for a weekend, if I can, like, I'm not going to be competing for contingencies, let's take that out. I can deal with like a burger and hot dogs kind of dinner, I can take that out. I'll be happy with the bourbon glasses if I even win at all, I'll take that out. And then you bring yourself down to, okay, so these are all the sacrifices. I've lowered my expectations. What does that match with? Oh, that matches with SCCA better. But if you're an SCCA driver and you're expecting gourmet dinners, high-end craft beers that they're giving away, fancy-ass trophies, why aren't I winning any parts and free parts for winning my sport class? Then you need to start looking at like, well, this is what you're paying for. If you have those expectations, you need to move on to the next thing. And as an organizer, you're trying to curate an experience. Like if SCCA had a live stream that cost them $20,000, what value would that actually provide to the drivers? And could they charge more for that value? And so it's kind of like all those things are working into it, right? So I would say, like, in order to make, if people really wanted to make motorsports cheaper, they need to lower their expectations. I'm okay not winning. I'm okay competing. I'm okay getting track time in. I'm okay competing to the guys next to me to see how I improve. I'm okay competing on 260 treadwear tires, or I'm okay competing on Hankook RS4s. I'm okay competing for a glass trophy instead of a metal trophy. I'm okay paying, and all that means I'm okay for paying $220 for an entry fee. So if people go into that sport, which a lot of people do getting into it, have the expectation that they're going to win, and then they don't win, then that's already, well, it's just going to cost me more money to win. If you can lower your expectation, especially when you're starting out into it, then I think that is technically like lowering the barrier of entry to get into motorsport.
And to a certain extent, what you just said that makes me think of is like time trials. Like wheel-to-wheel racing is what a lot of people aspire to. Not everybody, but a lot of people aspire to. There's a lot of people that when they think about racing, in their head, they're thinking wheel-to-wheel racing for position. That's what racing is. But there's a lot that comes with that. The biggest one being I'm diving down the inside of this corner to take this position away from this guy that's ahead of me. If he comes into you, doesn't see you, doesn't want to move, doesn't want to give you the space, you guys bump, all of a sudden the cars get damaged. Like, do you really want to do that in like a brand new car that you just spent a lot of money on? Do you want to deal with body damage and all that sort of thing? Like wheel-to-wheel racing has a lot of inherent expenses in it just from its nature.
Yep.
And so like you take time trials, and I think like at its very core, where it came from with out of Japan with the tuners competing with each other, is let's not use race tires. Let's use a tire that is available to all of us, that's not crazy expensive, and let's see what we can do with these cars just from a time standpoint, not from a wheel-to-wheel standpoint, to just try and find out who can be the fastest just on the clock, not take the checkered flag at the end of 10, 20, however many laps. And so that makes that kind of competition way more attainable, because there's a lot of extra things from wheel to wheel that you're just not dealing with. And so it's almost like the enthusiasts potentially can find the ways to make the competition attainable if you can frame it in a way that is interesting and compelling.
Yeah, 100%.
I think there's another thing enthusiasts are doing, and you're going to have to kind of join me on a little bit of a journey here as I lay this one out. So,
all right.
But I've talked to you guys about this before, and how sticker culture has ruined amateur motorsports. Because a lot of these folks right there, they're looking at, oh, how do I have my car, how do I make it a race car? Oh, that's too expensive, I can't do that. How do I get into this sport? Why is rally so expensive to do? Or why could they do it in the 60s or the 70s or 80s with sports car racing, and I can't do it now, and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that difference is like sponsorship support. And I think that there were higher levels of support at a time. Obviously inflation, it's impossible to like compare things apples to apples. But I think you could get more support, more title support at a lower level, because that was the primary mode of advertisement for a lot of sponsors. And where now I would guess that every one of these enthusiasts that is complaining about the cost of the barrier, cost of entry for motorsports, probably has like a big old Hoonigan sticker on the back of their car, and a Cobb sticker, and a this sticker, and a that sticker, or whatever. And I recognize that I'm talking to some folks whose job it is to have a shop that sells parts and gets marketed and stuff like that. But every time they put one of these stickers on their car for free, why would Hoonigan or whoever pay to put their sticker on another car, right? If they could, slap a sticker in with every order that goes out, and they get, 10,000 people out there wearing their sticker, why would they pay $10,000 to someone to put their sticker on their car that gets some exposure on a TV channel when, this guy with, 20,000 views on his TikTok gets that sticker out to twice as many people, kind of thing, then, that kind of thing. So it's, like, I don't know. This is another one of my old codgery points, is like, if you have stickers on your car that aren't paying for their spot, then you're part of the reason why you can't get more support started in motorsports.
I think I think the stickers are like twofold though, and I think Hoonigan's a great example, but we use the flat irons instead. Flat irons guys are just a bunch of cool guys, like they like Ryan, they like Tasso, they like John and Scotty, and they like what they're doing. And then sometimes, like, as we win or as we do great things or as we make our own accomplishments, a lot of people will put stickers on their cars to feel like they're part of that family. And so, like, our job as sponsor drivers or whatever from Flat Irons or whoever is to create the basis. So this is my counter argument to you, Tasso. Create the basis where you create enough excitement within a company or within a group of drivers where everyone wants to be part of that motion, even if they're not. So my argument to counter your argument is that if everybody out there is running a Flat Irons tuning sticker for free, means that they're hurting their chance to get a sponsorship. My counter argument is that people like you and me are doing our job by creating the excitement behind the brand along with Flat Irons tuning, and people want to be part of that. And Hoonigans obviously are really, really good at that. If they didn't have a big, like, multi-million-dollar following or multi-million, subscriber following on their channels and building, $500,000 cars and doing all that other stuff, and what the accomplishments that they do and the ups and the downs and stuff that they're really good at documenting, people probably wouldn't be rocking Hoonigan shirts and Hoonigan stickers and Monster Energy drinks stickers and shit like that. But ultimately, the sponsors like Flat Irons Tuning and Hoonigan and stuff are looking for key specific players that are willing to do things that are doing things to create such a larger brand presence. So, like, where people feel like that they're part of something that's really big or something that's really cool or something that's really niche. So my argument to you is that, and I think sometimes when people think about getting sponsorships from company, they have to almost think about it as like, what can I bring to this that will make it to the point where people are putting stickers that they're sending out for free on their car, or putting those stickers on their fridge, or turn it into their podcast. I feel like that's like what you're describing is the outcome of our efforts or the Hoonigans' efforts.
Here's what I think. You're both talking about two sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. So to Dussex, on your end, you're 100% right. I mean, everything that we do, the reason we make this podcast, the reason that we, as Flatirons Tuning, do everything that we do is to try and foster this community to help people do what we want to do ourselves and get out there and get the word out. And anything that that is listening to this or seeing this, like a sticker on your car, I mean, that's huge to us. Mm-hmm. Because like if we made enough of an impact to help you do what you want to do, that you'd put your sticker on the car, that's fantastic. If you take a picture of that sticker on your car and you post it somewhere, that's huge for us, because that's getting our word out, and hopefully maybe more people will give us a chance to help them do what they want to do. But I think to Tasso's point, where I totally have seen this, is that there's people that think, well, hey, I'm going to put your sticker on my car, and then therefore I should get X, Y, and Z simply because I put the sticker on the car. And would you agree with that, Tasso? Am I close-ish?
Yeah, it's not exactly the point I was making, but it's in the same vein. And before it goes too much further, by the way, this isn't a hill that I'm dying on when I make this point.
Well, no. Well, so what's interesting is here's I'm gonna try and do this, and this might not be exactly right, but here's why I think that my answer to this is no. Motorsport should not be any more attainable than what it is. In other words, they're like organizers, events shouldn't really try and cater to anybody to try and get more people in. Oh boy. Hopefully, there we go. Okay. Because motorsports, like people that are focused on the cost of entry, are focusing on the wrong thing. Yes, it's there. Yes, it's real. But there's a whole nother aspect of motorsports that if you're focused on that, you're missing the other aspect, which is innovation and finding a way, to compete, finding a way to make it work. And it's like, and I, as we're getting close to 100 episodes, 85 episodes, we've talked to a lot of people, and this story is becoming like there's a lot of commonalities that have come up. It's a lot of commonalities with everybody on this podcast. Is that, and again, what brings it into mind was talking to Tim Hardy, but like Scotty's a perfect example of this. Dussex, you're a perfect example of this, and Tasso, you're a perfect example of this. Is if you want to go out and compete, and you have the ability to just get the ball rolling, to get a car that you're allowed to race with, if you don't let the simple dollars stop you, and you're willing to think about the car, think about the problem, think about anything and everything you can possibly do to make the car faster and be more competitive, you will find a way to do it. And so many people that we've talked to, that's what they've done. They have found a way through sometimes crazy avenues to do it, to make it happen. Again, everybody here is a perfect example of that. Scotty especially, Dussex, Tasso, all you guys, perfect example of that. But the people that are coming into motorsports and think that it should be more attainable because of the cost, thinking like, well, I have to have $100,000 in my car to have a shot at being in the top 5. Well, maybe, but
I mean,
maybe not.
To both Ryan and Tasso's point, of you have to get in where you fit in. You have to figure out what you want to do, and either you have to take a few steps back to where you can go out and drive a car and have fun at the cheapest price possible, or you have to, be willing to sacrifice sometimes damn near everything in order to get, where you want to be. Like, if the overall win, I mean, this is huge sacrifice. That means a lot of other things just get put on the back burner, or maybe just get taken off the plate altogether. Like you have to be willing to do this stuff if you want to do it. So as a competitor trying to get in there, you need to start small, and you need to figure out if this is the right place for you, because it's not for everybody. To think you're going to go right out and start winning stuff. I mean, if you don't have a bunch of money, and the money's not going to do everything if you don't have the skills. But if you don't have a bunch of money, you have to start small, and you have to try and figure out how to get where you want to go, and then put up or shut up.
Yeah. I even have had this conversation with Trey recently. I don't know if you guys know, but I think John knows, but Trey spun a rod bearing among other random occurrences last weekend. He ran really fast at High Plains, and he only needs like 11 points to really lock in his points championship win for his class. I told him, I was like, I mean, now is the time that you can just keep riding this. Like, I'm going to do pretty good at max. Or now is the time that you start building. You got time to start building a car that says, all right, now it's time to take the show on the road and just be the baddest motherfucker out there, because that's what time attack really is. And just like Tasso was saying, or even when we talk about the mountain, the hill climb is an awesome experience to do. It's cool when you do really well in your class, but people remember when they see that video of that guy in that Volkswagen thing driving 145 miles an hour and just like 45 feet visibility. It's just like, they're going to remember that. They're going to remember the weird off stuff, but eventually you do all these little things that continue to prepare yourself to eventually the day when you have to have a $200,000 car to compete at a pointy end of the level on a street car. I mean, that people should not be starting out that should not be their goal going out in their first season to do it. But at some point you're going to be presented with a decision, and is that the decision that you make, and that's
right. Well, and I guess my overall point is you've got to be willing to innovate. If you don't have the dream is the arrive and drive dream, that you show up to the racetrack and, hey, look, there's my race car, and you hop in and you drive and you go fast. Maybe you win, maybe you place, and then you get out and you're like, well, that was fun, and then you go home, and that's it. That's the dream, like, of all of us that want to drive. But so many people and so many people that we've talked to, and it's true of everybody here, that's like so far out there in the distance. And so it's like, okay, well, I can't just pay to show up and drive a car. I'll be my crew. I'll set the car up. I'll buy the car. And find ways to build the car, get it elevated to the level where you want it to be, and then go out there and compete. And then have at some point, once you figure out the car, figure out that formula, find the solutions to some of these problems, all of a sudden, then that's where the time falls down. That's where the car becomes competitive, and you've innovated, you've figured out the solutions to these problems, and that's what has gotten you now to that point after putting all of that time and effort, versus just being able to show up and drive, whatever a car is. And it's that willingness to innovate, and that willingness to take this car and develop it and know that it's going to take time to get it to that point, versus just expecting the car to just be at that point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference.
I like the innovation process too. And that's the kind of working on cars I do like to do, is the innovation part. But the thing is, like, even that eventually runs into a cost ceiling too.
Sure.
Like, there's a couple things for my car where I'm like, yeah, this would be great. Can't afford to do that innovation. Even the DIY cost is still like,
yeah.
There's some ideas I have on the table, but
that's how that stuff starts, though. I mean, like, talk about innovation and doing things in levels, and like, when you're ready for it, I mean, you've sat in your garage and you've talked about it so many times before with a beer in your hand, and just like 3/4 inch like angle aluminum. Like, all right, what can I do with this to make my car faster? I mean, that's how we all start. I mean, Scotty's the same way. It's not like he's running through a wind tunnel with his rear diffuser. It's going through doing the free research that you can, putting together, see what happens, and if it works, cool. How much? Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? And maybe someday, in the future, maybe in the distant future or in varying futures for all of us, that you're starting, like we started at the bottom with beers and angled aluminum, and someday we're like renting a wind tunnel in South Carolina or North Carolina.
Right.
And somewhere and everything in between, like even the private are doing that.
I got a fun game. If you had roughly 10 grand right now to spend on your race car, what would you do? And roughly, so I don't care if it's 15 grand to make whatever happen, or if it's only 8 grand. I don't care that much about the exact number.
Sequential gearbox.
Sequential.
Yeah, I think that's sequential. Yeah,
I had the same thought.
I mean, Keith was asking, he's like, man, what this Gold Rush event that you're doing and the hill climb and blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'd really love to build you like a higher horsepower motor. I was like, honestly, man, I want a sequential before I want more power. I want to figure out all the sequential problems on a cheaper, lower horsepower motor and then put in the big motor when all that shit's worked out. Because like at this point, I don't even have a sequential or monies for a sequential, but that's where my thought process is,
Yeah.
The next big mod on a car that doesn't even run yet is a sequential.
So how about other than?
Well, but hold on, because this is totally relevant. Because again, what has got this into my head is talking to Tim Hardy, and the two things that they brought this up to my mind is carbon fiber and sequential, right? Tim Hardy, and it can't be spoilers if this comes out after the conversation with him. All right, so go back and watch that if you haven't. He made all of these carbon fiber parts himself in his dad's garage, just a residential garage, because he just figured out how he could overlay this carbon fiber fabric and apply epoxy over. He's made fenders, hoods, doors, splitters, rear diffuser, under tray, all himself in a garage out of carbon fiber to bring the level of his car up and the weight of the car down. And like talking to Scotty, like Scotty has this problem where he's cut almost every non-essential thing out of his car, and he still needs to save 100 pounds. And so what he's left with is, okay, I now have to look at materials. Like, what can I take off that's made of steel or aluminum and replace it with something that's lighter, which means more expensive. But like, he has to get the weight down. He doesn't have a choice. So all of a sudden it gets harder. And so Tim, like, just had the wherewithal to just decide, all right, I'm going to figure out carbon fiber, which is crazy. And like we talked to Amir, and that kind of sounds like he had the same approach. Is like, well, I guess I have to figure out carbon fiber now. And they went out and did it, which is just wild and crazy. And then like, so for the sequential, he put in a dual clutch transmission, but he didn't like buy a new one. He got one. This was crazy. He got one for $600 and one for $650 because it was out of a low mileage car. He just got BMW dual clutch transmissions out of wrecked cars, and that's what he put into his race car. So like, he literally, like, we're talking about, would $10,000 be enough to do it? He got 2 transmissions for $1,250.
But yeah, if we wanted to do rear-wheel drive conversions on our Subarus, it would, maybe we could get into it for
right,
quite a few $1,000s less. But no one wants to do that. It
just mean to say that, like, there's someday maybe there will be a solution. Maybe there's some other all-wheel drive car that would have some kind of a transmission that could be applied to a Subaru. Fairly unlikely, but you never know.
Andy Forrest of that GTR trains, but I'm sure that those are probably as expensive as just a traditional, sequential.
Yeah.
So Tasso, if it wasn't a sequential, it would just be carbon fiber.
Yeah.
That's where I would put $10,000 into.
Weight. $10,000 into weight savings.
Or hookers and blow. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to make you faster, Scotty.
You could save a little weight that way, though.
Yeah.
Exercise.
Some exercise. Yeah.
That's called sweat equity right there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just so interesting how light some of these cars are that these people are making, and like with Subarus, it's challenging to get the weight down.
Did Tim say how heavy his car was?
2,600 after he put the DCT in.
And
that
before
DCT was an extra 200 pounds.
Before that, it was 2,400.
Yeah.
We got that.
I'm a little bit of carbon fiber from there right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a long ways away from there right now.
My yellow
I'm
car
a lot of
is
carbon fiber.
2,630 pounds with a steel roof and glass.
All glass, and it's still 2,600 pounds.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. But your roll cage is made out of hopes and dreams.
It's made out of paper. It's paper mache, man.
Yeah.
It's like the old days.
You fix that paper mache cage, and I bet you it's going to be more like 20. Like in Tasso's car, you're about 2,700 pounds. I think that's what it came up to on our scales.
Yeah, depending on how much you trust your scales.
Which I don't. So I think it's actually 2,800 pounds.
I do. I'll take the friendly dyno number in this case.
Okay.
It's definitely 2,660.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah, weight savings. I mean, that would be the other thing, other than a sequential.
I think it's funny that like everyone right off the bat was like sequential, and we're all in essentially different forms of motorsports to some extent. A couple time trial guys, but whatever. And then just a shop bruiser with Cooley's wagon. But we all essentially went sequential, and then I'm guessing everyone else next would go weight savings or aero parts, probably, right?
Carbon fiber, yeah.
Sequential, weight, aero. Yeah. Weight and aero is
Aero is so overrated.
Well, I mean, if you spend $10,000 and you could save 500 pounds off your car, that would probably be, that's not reasonable, but I think that weight savings would probably make you faster than aero for the same budget. Initially.
I mean, technically aero's adding weight to the car, so.
And drag.
Yeah, so when you think of like the horsepower amount that you're losing with it, I don't know.
Yeah. The reason for Subaru, for me, why the sequential would have such a benefit is being able to get the engine into its power band and hold it there until you get on the brakes. Know that you can go through the gears and keep the engine in its peak power that whole time.
Sounds like we need performance CVTs.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. And I'd like to sell you.
Never hear it.
Yeah. I'd like to sell you a refrigerator in Alaska or something.
About how really, if we just went with one of the 4 speeds with a manual lockup converter, we would be most of the way there for probably most of us for a sequential for our cars. Because I think you can get a 4-speed with a little bit of help to hold up, probably. If you got a little creative with it, that's probably the equivalent to getting a 4-wheel drive, something that you can shift with a button.
No DCCD. And it's probably going to weigh more
not entirely, because the 4-speed, the 4 EATs, they're very front biased, but it's an electric coupling that sends torque to the rear, but it's not the same.
In the 4 EATs in first gear, if you actually drop that thing in first gear, it goes true 50-50 split, but everything else is usually way more front biased, 80-20, some shit like that.
You could hotwire that. I mean, if it can do it, it means you can make it do it, right?
Right.
So.
Yep. Wait a minute.
No, that's
Wait
dumb.
a minute. Wait a minute.
Nope. Not going there.
I'll actually tell you, there was a guy, Michael, I can't remember his last name, years ago. That's what he did. This was back in 2004, 2005, is he had a built 4 EAT that he put in his race car, but I don't know what, he never really did anything with it. And he was more focused on drag racing, but he basically had the shifter made so it would shift like a sequential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean
that new Super Trans is super fast. I was watching Rich Enriquez, his video from the time trials weekend last weekend, and It rips off. You wouldn't have no idea it was a torque converter automatic. It's just insane. It's as fast as any DCT. And he's doing like 145 miles an hour on the back stretch without even trying. 120 on the front stretch at high points.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they're faster for drag racing. If you think about a circuit race, it's just a drag race with weird staging lanes, right?
Well, and the downside with the automatic typically is the power loss.
Heat.
Heat and the power loss, yeah.
You'd have a whole other radiator just for your trans.
Yeah.
Especially if you're making the center diff do weird shit.
Right.
Spool and not worry about it for the gravel stuff.
See, all of a
but then
sudden,
you run into weird stuff because
innovation, like it's happening right now.
But we can't run electronically controlled transmissions in rally stuff or rally-based things. That's just why you see the big levers on sequentials, is because you're still manually changing the gear in the transmission. It's just you have electronic cuts and stuff that are enabled, but they did give a special exemption for factory like DCTs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you'd have to try and argue a factory exemption for but again, I'm also against classes and rules. So
you like that? You like me? You like the Outback Steakhouse, right? No rules. No rules, just right.
There you go. Yeah. At Arby's, because we got meat, baby.
That's right.
You know what this is making me think of? So the 5EAT, the 5-speed automatic. So
I just hear they're way weaker.
They are that's the downside. But when they came out with that, some of those cars had paddles. In fact, Steve that used to work here, he has an Outback with the 5EAT, and he actually put paddles onto his steering wheel to be able to shift. They're weaker, but the other interesting thing is a lot of them are much more rear biased.
Oh, okay.
So again, like with the front rear split. So man, if somebody could come up with a way,
I don't like this conversation anymore.
Well, no. So if somebody could come up with a way to increase the strength in the 5EAT to get it to the point.
Let's stop talking about putting automatics in cars.
That ran its course.
Innovation. It's happening.
It would work.
Nobody do this. Nobody do this. Nobody go out. If you're listening to this, don't buy a 4AT. Don't buy a 5EAT. This is just for guys that don't know anything talking.
Yeah.
I want to keep the prices down
so
I can get 6 of them.
Guys.
Yeah.
Close call. We almost really went down that path.
Well, but yeah, it's just there's so many benefits to being able to hold the engine in its power band, get through the shifts without dropping out of the power, without releasing all the pressure from the inlet track, and then having to build the pressure up again and all that sort of thing. I mean, it's just with the Subaru, there's just so many benefits to it.
I mean, but before even I went to a Haltech where I could, do flat foot shifting, spark cut and stuff like that, I still only lost about a pound of boost when I was shifting that 5-speed, synchro stock ass box with whatever, and it was staying in power band the whole time. So like I think you could still do that if you're good at shifting. I think a lot of the benefit of sequential though is you're less likely to make a mistake, right?
That too.
Save your engine too.
Yeah.
If you can't accidentally do that 4 to 2 upshift, that is so known to plague engines.
Right. Sometimes referred to as a money shift.
Yeah, money shift.
Because it costs a lot of money.
Shifts or even a miss shift. Like, because a lot of the time, and hopefully this year's a little better. We went into some fun stuff in the transmission to try and get still a synchroed box to act a little bit more friendly to the quick shifts. But like my 2-3 shift, especially off the line, I still had some start line nerves, and before I was, really into the run and stuff, I would miss that 2-3 shift a lot. And especially, courses the longer front straight like Temple Canyon. I mean, what's a miss shift miss you on a drag race? You're just done, right? And so it's essentially I'm losing seconds by the end of the start straight, just with one shift. And where we had, a race a couple of years ago where the whole podium was within a second and the top 3 were within, a fraction of a second. That's a loss right there. And so like that's the consistency for me is why one of the first things I think I'd spend my mandatory 10 grand on would be.
That still wouldn't really get you a sequential anyway.
Yeah, but it'd get us close. But so another thing in talking with Tim Hardy, he was saying that he actually sat down and watched his in-car footage from going up Pikes Peak with an H pattern. And he said there's approximately 50 upshifts and 50 downshifts. His fastest upshifts are about half second. His fastest downshift that he could do is about 0.6 seconds. So if you think about that over the course of Pikes Peak, I mean, how there's roughly 10 to 12 seconds right there just from the time it takes you to shift. So getting a sequential dialed in, I mean, it'd be way better if you actually had the flappy paddle so you didn't actually have to move the hand.
Yeah.
But the reduction in just shift time also, I mean.
Well, and then the other interesting point that he made is this is what we kind of, at some point we're going to sit down with Scott and do a download of our Pikes Peak run, but he taking the thought process out of shifting so that now you're holding the wheel, you're shifting here, your eyes are focused on the road where you're going, and you're just shifting like this. You're not having to push the clutch in, reach out for the shifter, especially with an H pattern, having to basically distract your mind with all of the shifting process and have your focus just be on the driving. Like with Scott, a lot of the big thing that found us the time this year was not shifting as much, which meant that a lot more of his focus was on the driving. That's the other potential advantage of a sequential, is it lets you take, like there's the traction circle, like are you going to use your tires for turning or accelerating, and like whatever you're using for this it takes away from that. Are you going to use your driving for focusing on the driving, or like what percentage of your brain are you going to send off to shift and then thinking about shifting? Do you have to shift? Like the sequential makes that a lot more automatic.
And you can left foot brake, which I know that sounds silly, but using your left foot to do the braking reduces that like left gas to brake moment. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Gives you more flexibility too, and even your lines where you can kind of like still cover the gas and then just poke the brake if you need to, and then full throttle.
And there's no time for moving your foot from one to the other. You've got immediate control, and if you're going to like left foot brake in the corner, if your braking system is set up for it, which most stock cars are not.
So who do we need to rob to get us for sequential transmissions?
ENT. I just talked to that lady last night at the bank. She is ready to just give us the whole farm. I'm not going to tell her that sequential is not for that Fauci NASCAR.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
I know how to help spend your members' money.
Sure. I mean, this is why, like for the longest time when there was hopefully another generation SCI, was like it has to have a sequential. It has to have a dual
DCT. Yeah.
A DCT, because it's like that would be, for a Subaru, a factory Subaru especially, that would be such a game changer.
Yep.
Man,
it's not too late. They still might have like a super fancy one.
I'm really wondering about 5 VATs now. Could you
make
that work?
Stop.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and figure that out, and then just let us know.
Figure out the 5 VAT.
We'll make that episode 100.
Okay. Episode 100. That'll be the target.
I'm going to come in half a bourbon down.
Oh man.
We should film more of these at night.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the sparkling water is not cutting it.
After
beer would be
beer 30.
Way better right now.
Yeah. Even
especially talking about all the things that we can't afford.
Well, so to kind of bring it around, I mean, what do you does this basically prove that innovation is as valuable as budget?
I don't care.
I mean, you can innovate the budget too.
Sure.
Budget innovation.
Creative accounting.
Creative accounting. Yes, I love creative accounting. The government doesn't know though.
So I mean, remember that humans made up laws, and humans made up money, and humans made up race cars. So
race cars equal money? That's what I just heard.
Fake.
They're all fake.
They're all fake.
None of them exist.
In the Matrix.
I think Scotty would agree that he's sitting in a race car. I'm pretty sure he would agree that race cars exist.
It's a car that races.
It's a car that races. Okay.
That's true. I don't know, man.
Sorry, that got very philosophical there. I apologize.
Tasso, I see a lot of extra wires in here.
Yeah, you're telling me, man.
Why?
It gets really complicated if you cut too many out.
But
even with the Haltech, you still have to keep all that stuff in.
Some of it, yeah. So it's there. Why don't you turn around and look? I'll point you at some stuff. Don't I don't know, show all my problems in there.
Oh my God.
I get really embarrassed in here. Oh, it's just dark now. Okay.
Oh my God.
See that factory harness?
That's like 2 pounds of electrical tape.
Yeah, it's too much. It's okay. I mean, while it's there, you guys are welcome to strip the harness.
Yeah, that's not happening.
Get some bikes, just take a big chunk out.
Really dark in there,
at some point, it's about just getting out there with the harness that you have, rather than hoping that the harness gets better. I don't know. Yes, electrical though is that's up there for me. Not quite 10 grand, but if I had, an imaginary, I don't know what a bespoke motorsport harness would be.
Well, so we've been looking.
We've
been spending a lot of time looking at Haltechs, and we were looking at their PDMs yesterday.
You
already have the Elite. Well, no, just the PDM.
Oh,
so the
there's
Nexus.
PDMs?
So the Haltech Nexus has a PDM built in, but you have a PDM that you could add to your Elite.
Ooh,
and it was
cool.
like, wasn't it like 1,600?
I don't have HVAC. I don't have headlights. I have a couple turn signals still, with no way to actuate them. It has brake lights.
Scotty, can you get rid of some of your brake lights and headlights to help save weight in your car? I was thinking about that yesterday. Thinking about you with like one real ass like carbon fiber eye.
Well, so I got rid of the HIDs. Those big bulbs are out of there. I cut those out. So now all I have is high beams up there.
And like the lens and the projector and all the shit that's in them, right?
Yeah, that's gone.
They're not too heavy even. It's like the door speakers in a Subaru are like 1/8 of a pound each. I mean, at least in the GDs, they're crazy light. So like I ran a sound system, not a nice one, but 4 door speakers for a much longer, like well into the car's racing career. It still had a head unit and 4 door speakers. Because there's just crazy light in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, so, and tunes make you go faster.
Yeah, sure. But the headlights are like, I have blanks in mine that I made out of some old junky headlights, and it didn't save a whole lot of money. Or not money, but
weight.
You know what I'm trying to say? Weight.
Yeah.
It's way up front, right? And it's on the heavy end of the car, and it's relatively high. So.
Well, and with that PDM, like you still have all your fuse boxes. That's what we're wondering is how much, like you go to a PDM and you're able to take all of those fuse boxes and relays and everything out.
Yeah.
Now you're on your own. Now you're on your own for troubleshooting, but it seems like that would be probably not insignificant weight savings.
I was talking to Adam Wood, and he has that GCL. It's like a little L that's been called converted. It's all-wheel drive and all that stuff. And he still has like factory ECU and stuff. He's not running on a Haltech, I don't think. And he cut out 50 pounds of wiring out of his GC. Yeah. 50 pounds.
Yeah. So all the harnesses behind, like towards the rear of the car from the dash in that car have been stripped. So there's not much there. There's essentially enough to run the taillights and the fuel pump. And actually I leave the rear door sensors in, which is, now that I have that Haltech dash in there, they don't work, but I would use, like, it's nice when you're sitting at the start line, you see a little door open indicator, like, oh shit, someone opened my rear door and didn't close it all the way. So it was handy to have those, but that's all the wiring that's left, like from where you're sitting or back is all stuff that needs to be there.
That's been stripped in both the other cars. I've actually stripped my dash harness. I lost, I think, 30 pounds already stripping my dash harness. The one in the Pikes Peak car has not been stripped, but doing that PDM, you're essentially eliminating every single wire underneath the dash that runs to this fuse box, then up to the other fuse box, then back to this, then to wherever the hell it's going, back to themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's on the list.
Yeah.
If anybody feels like I got wire too, I'm happy to drop some wire off if anybody feels like doing that for my car.
Nah.
Nice.
Nah.
Nah, you're on your own there.
Nah,
I don't
dog.
even want to do it for my car.
Hail to the no.
Yeah.
But I'm going to.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah. Me too.
Yes. Yes. It's on the list sooner or later.
We can hold each other accountable. If in 20 years neither of us have a bespoke motorsport harness yet, then we have to get married or strip our harnesses or something like that or whatever.
Okay.
So
I'd say chip in and buy motorsports harnesses for both cars.
There we go.
20 years. The clock starts now.
Yeah. I mean, even just stuff. I have wiring issues as it is. I've been chasing a home signal fault for like 2 years now. It's very annoying.
Right.
So it's a crank sensor. It randomly drops out.
Right.
It seems to be more frequently turning left than right. So figure that out.
That helps. That helps.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Man.
Like it doesn't. It's not temperature. It's not
Right.
junk. It's junk is what it is.
We know it's not the sensor. Tried that. Yeah.
It's not the sensor. It's not a bunch of stuff. So what it is shitty electronics, and I should have stuck with a carbureted car.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh boy. Carburation. Is that the solution? I don't think it is.
No.
No.
No. If you've never bought a set of cheap jets and chased your tail trying to get a carburetor jetted right, only to realize that your jets aren't sealing against their seats, and that's why you're chasing your tail, you'll wish you had EFI. Holy shit, you'd take a sensor fault any day.
Right.
I didn't have that problem, but I definitely had the problem where I bought jets. I had a dual side draft carbureted Honda. Oh my God, that was such a fucking pain in the ass, and I'll never go back. I say that, but I think about getting dual Webers all the time for like a B series.
Yeah.
They
sound good. They're cool. Shit, just like yesterday I was at a gas station up in northern Colorado of all places, and there was like a little Toyota pickup there with, I'm guessing, like the 22R in it. It was early, like still carbureted, not the 22RE. And man, it had a rowdy idle. Like it must have had some big cam in there. And just the fact that somebody turned up their 22R and it's just sitting there in the gas station. It's like, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, I was into it. I don't know why. It hit, and then when it pulled out of there, it was on a welded diff or something because it chirped on the way out of the parking lot, like a lowered Toyota pickup. Man, should never have sold. Never should have sold my Toyota pickup.
big old DGV downdraft on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're over an hour, and we've now started talking about carburetors. It's time to stop.
Yes,
it is. It's time to call it.
We didn't stop when we were talking about automatics.
Shh.
Yeah,
That's the solution. Don't talk about it anymore.
Stop.
Don't talk about it anymore. We're gonna figure it out. All right, man. Well, thanks to everybody thanks guys for joining us. Thanks everybody for listening to us. Thanks for putting up with us. And man, we really appreciate your support. And as always, until next time.
Oh,
stay
wait, John.
tuned. Wait.
Is there a Patreon update?
We've had some setbacks in the shop.
Oh,
it's coming. Really, I'm gonna really try and get it up as we're recording this. By the time this episode goes up, maybe the Patreon. I'm gonna put pressure on ourselves. So this is gonna go up in 2 weeks from when we're recording this. By the next episode, we will have information for the Patreon because it will be up by that point.
Are we gonna do like a little scrolling ticker that says like Clown Shoe 42069, and all our other subs on there?
Yep.
Like just BMW drivers are going to be the ones.
Oh yeah, dude. BMW drivers, I guarantee you listen to this podcast because we're the threat.
Just M-Coupe drivers.
They want to know. They want to know what us super guys are coming up to figure out to make their lives difficult.
Yeah.
And the answer is we're going to steal all their DCTs. That's what we're going to do.
Hey Dewey, hope things are going well.
Yeah. Oh, yep. What's up, Dewey?
Yeah, we just been canceled. Way to go, Tasso.
Wait a minute. He can't cancel us. We put this up for free. That's not how it works. That's not how it works, I think.
We should get Dewey on here. It's now on the recording. I'm saying we should get Dewey on here.
All right. Yeah. we'll reach out. I'll talk to anybody. Sure.
Oh,
I'll talk to your off. I'll distract him.
Even
Dewey. If nothing else, to distract from the fact that I'm trying to secretly figure out this 5EAT problem now.
Problem. Like it was the one that
Probably.
needs to be solved.
Oh man. The 5EAT is going to be the cause and the solution to all of our problems.
Okay.
No?
No. This has been fun, guys. Love you. Bye.
I would. Hey.
Oh yeah, so this is the end. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, by the next episode, Patreon information.
Flatirons Problem Starting Podcast. Ain't no problem too big for us to start.
Ain't no problem to start. Yeah.
Yeah.
The starting fluid section is now concluded.
Okay. Well, until next time, stay tuned. There. And scene. Okay.
Thanks everyone for tuning in to the Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast. Once again, we'd like to let you know that your support is what makes this show possible. Be sure to check out our online store at flatirons.com for any of your aftermarket or OEM Subaru parts needs. And as always, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.